Hello, Peter4790 or Sirus here, and I got my good friend Swordfish1390 here, and we're going to review the much acclaimed Vita title, Persona 4 Golden. A game so good that I apparently have another anime series going to be dedicated to it. Huh. But we're not here to talk about the anime series, we're here to talk about the game itself. So, how are you this fine evening, Sword?
I'm doing good, thanks for having me.
Anyway, before we start, I think we should discuss our experience with the Shin Megami Tensei series itself, mostly about the games we played and beat. Me personally, I played and beat Persona 3, well Persona 3 FES to be exact, for Persona 3 Portable, and of course the game we're talking about today, Persona 4 Golden, with me dabbling around in Persona 2, Shin Megami Tensei 4, and just recently starting through Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, which just got released on PSN recently. And you, Sword?
I beat Digital Devil Saga, I'm almost done with 2, I beat Persona 3, 4, Golden, FES, Devil Summon 2, I'm working on Devil Survivor, Persona 1 and 2, as you can tell, I'm a pretty big fan if I've played that many.
So you can see why I got Sword here to basically do this co-op review of me. Okay, just one more thing before we start. Which is, do note that I don't have any video recording device, so I will be using footage I've seen on the internet, or more specifically YouTube, for Persona 4 Golden footage, along with mixing it up with footage from the original game on PS2. I will probably use the different footage I got to compare and contrast the differences between the original and Golden version when we do talk about the differences, but probably do note that I'm going to be using the original Persona 4 footage on PS2 when we're just generally talking about the game. So let's start this review. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is the visuals of Persona 4 Golden, which I have to say looks pretty impressive. I mean, it's not the Vita's best, but it looks great on the Vita, with the visuals having a nice upgrade from the PS2, with the character models environment providing this vibrant anime look to it, which is crisp, vibrant, and just very appealing to see. The character portraits are also nicely drawn, and the anime cutscenes are great to watch, with the new one being equally enjoyable to watch as well. Though you are probably be able to tell quite easily which anime cutscene came from the original and which anime cutscene was made for the Golden version. And while we're on the subject of anime cutscenes, I do really like how you're actually able to watch them in Persona 4 Golden, while in the original you couldn't. And along these upgrades, they even reduced some models here and there, like the fridge that's in the Yu's home, which I think really adds to the game. So, what's your opinion on the visual, Sword?
I'd say you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think as far as both Vita standards and PlayStation 2 standards are concerned, the character models themselves I feel aren't all that impressive because they really only have a couple of types of movements here and there. They'll have a hand gesture or a nod, but the environments look very, very good. I mean, it actually feels like you're living in a real breathing city. Everything feels so alive, and the dungeon designs are so varied. You got a bathhouse, a castle, just so much variety in the dungeons, and the special effects when you're using your personas in battle look really, really great. So, and the anime cutscenes, like you said, look really good. And overall, yeah, I really don't have much to complain about the visuals. I give it a thumbs up. Okay,
let's talk about sound design next. The music in Persona 4 in general, I have to say, is pretty unique for most RPGs I personally played, with having this sort of Japanese pop feeling being prevalent in the soundtrack itself, with it also having a slew of really well done instrumental pieces, which are really well done as well. I especially like the final boss theme, which is called Genesis, which is simply awesome, and I love the remix of I Face Myself that's in Golden. And I have to say that the tracks that does have this sort of Japanese pop feel to it is really well done. It's different, but it's really fun to listen to with how catchy and upbeat it is. So Sword, do you share my opinion on music?
I definitely do share your opinion on music. I am a Shoji Meguro fanboy. Anything he'll put, any slop he'll put out right in front of me, I'd be cool with it. I mean, especially in Persona 4, there's so much variety. The J-pop battle music that surprisingly fits well with battles, and some of the metal tracks, and just everything is so well done. And like I said, there's so much variety. And when I bought the original PS2 version, it came with a soundtrack CD. I downloaded it on my PS3 and I listened to it all the time. It's just so well done. I mean, I can understand why not everyone would be a fan of J-pop. It's really an acquired taste, but really, I think that even people who don't dig that kind of music, I think you should still give this soundtrack a try. It's really, really well done.
Now we're going to talk a bit about the voice acting. The overall cast is great, with Atlus being able to bring back the original cast to dub in new lines for a couple of the new scenes as in Persona 4 Golden, and the original cast was just as great now as they were back then. Well, most of them came back. There are two noticeable voice changes in the cast. Well, if you play Persona 4 Arena, then you probably know what I'm talking about. The voice changes are Sam Riegel voicing Teddy in place of Dave Wittenberg, and Chie being voiced by Aaron Fitzgerald in place of Tracy Rooney. The reception to this change seems to be kinda mixed in the community. So Sword, what do you think of the new voices?
For Teddy, I was actually really surprised at how well Sam Riegel was able to emulate Dave Wittenberg's voice. Honestly, if I didn't know beforehand, it probably would have taken me a long time to notice that it actually was not Dave Wittenberg. I was very surprised. I got to give him props. I really did not mind the change at all because of how well he was able to pull off Teddy. Chie, on the other hand, I'm not as positive as I am with Teddy. I mean, I don't dislike Aaron Fitzgerald in the slightest. I think she's actually really good. She did Tipo, she did Erica from Catherine. Really good job. But I think it was more of a miscast here because Chie was kind of like this, zany but also kind of strong girl, and I think that having this high-pitched voice for her kind of makes her sound like a chirpy tsundere type character. It really felt like I was in some ways like looking at a different character altogether. I mean, I got used to it after a while, but overall I definitely wasn't really happy with Chie's change. But overall, aside from those two changes, the overall voice acting is great. I mean, Johnny Young Bosch, Yuri Lowenthal, Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, you got an all-star cast here. There's really not much to complain about in the voice department.
For me personally, when I was playing Persona 4 Arena for the first time, I automatically noticed that it was a different actor in regards to both Teddy and Chie voice changes. But for Teddy, Sam Riegel does a great job with Teddy's character in terms of voicing him. Chie, on the other hand, I'm kinda mixed on. I'd probably say that Aaron Fitzgerald's voice does match Chie's personality more in my opinion, because of how much more energetic her voice is compared to Tracy Rooney. Though their delivery is kind of mixed, in that she can be a bit too loud at times.
Basically, don't play with your Vita with your headphones at this.
Okay, now we're going to go into an important part of the presentation of Persona 4 Golden, which is the story. The story of Persona 4 starts out with you playing as, well, kind of yourself. It's a self-insert type of character with his official name being Yu Murakami, which is the name I'm going to use from now on whenever I'm referring to the main character. Anyway, it seems Yu is moving from the big city of, well, we don't know what city he comes from. The game never really specified, though the anime does specify that he's from Tokyo, so go for that if you want to know which big city he comes from. Now, it seems he's moving from there to the rural area of Inaba due to his parents' work overseas, where he will live with his uncle and cousin, where he will have to adjust to life of being a high schooler in Inaba for 1 year. But just as Yu arrives in Inaba and befriends a couple of students at a high school he attends, a string of strange murders takes place where the victims are killed through unknown causes and are mysteriously hanged upside down from unusually high places, just as a telephone pole or an antenna. And to add to the mystery, it seems that the Midnight Channel, a program that appears on televisions on rainy nights at midnight that supposedly show the viewer's soulmate and a mysterious world that exists through the TV, is connected to the string of murders. More specifically, the murderer seems to be throwing people in the TV, where the world inhabitants, called shadows, kill said person when a foggy day appears in the human world. And it mysteriously seems like the Midnight Channel is able to predict who the murderer's next victim is. With Yu's apparent ability to enter the TV and his sudden awakening to a persona, which allows him to fight these shadows, as well as him being able to wield multiple personas, it is up to him and his friends to solve the murder mystery that plagues Inaba and stop the killer from taking any more lives. The story overall is great in my opinion. The premise in terms of the TV world and how it works was pretty unique and interesting, and it really did add to the supernatural murder mystery in terms of seeing how the cast slowly figured out the rules of the TV world, as well as steadily piecing together the truth behind the murders, with the story having a good amount of twists and turns and some red herrings in the case itself, which makes it a pretty good mystery to be invested in. And speaking of truth, that is generally the main theme in Persona 4, more specifically about how there are sides to ourselves that we typically try to hide from other people, and how we have to confront them and accept them and be able to grow as individuals. The themes are really well done and are really inspiring, and they really do add a layer of dimensions to the characters that are involved directly in the murder case via the main cast of characters that we'll be controlling for the course of the game. And really, I think that is the main strength of the story, just how the theme of truth is handled and how it opens up all these type of relatable issues that we see each individual character in the case face, and seeing them overcome them is great, and seeing the character further tackling these type of issues in their social links is simply awesome to watch. The characters in general in Persona 4 Golden is fantastic as well, as they're really distinctive and really likable, and the main cast interaction is gold, pardon the pun. And the overall bond between the main cast is very genuine. It made me really invested in the story of the game just to see how things will play out for them. And the side characters also written really well as well, with them also having likable personalities, and each of the character goes through an arc as you go through their social links, which we'll discuss later on in the gameplay part. So, you share my opinion on the story, Sword?
I overall love the story. I thought it was one of the main draws of the game, and like you said, it's a very unique premise with its murder mystery, like a supernatural murder mystery, and just twists and turns the more you play, and just when you think you were able to figure one thing out, bam, a curveball's thrown at you, and then you're back to the drawing board. And the characters, like you said, are just so three-dimensional. The struggle, the inner struggles that they overcome, and watching them face their inner shadows, literally and figuratively, was very cool to see in the symbolic, way that the shadows transform into their inner, thoughts. Very, very well done, in my opinion. And just interactions of the characters makes these characters feel so alive, I thought. Every character was so distinct, and I like how the characters each had like a flaw of some kind. That makes them, you don't want a Gary Sue and a Mary Sue. All these characters have something that they gotta overcome. I thought it was really, really great. And like you also said, the social link characters also feel like they're real people, and learning about their stories is really good. And even something I like too was just the localization itself, and when you're talking to like minor NPCs, it makes even the most minor of NPCs feel three-dimensional. So overall, the story and characters I felt were one of the game's highlights.
Though, there's still one more thing we have to talk about the story, which is the tone. More specifically, its tone compared to other Shin Megami Tensei games. Out of all the Shin Megami Tensei games, I would probably say that it is the most lighthearted out of the games I've played. And I've seen some fans say that's not to their liking, having played the other Shin Megami Tensei games. I personally think there's a nice balance between the light and dark stuff in the game, with the light moments getting us to really connect with the character, while the dark stuff allow us to see the trials and tribulations that these same characters face, which are pretty interesting themselves, and seeing them overcome them is great since we're so connected to them from the light stuff. And the dark stuff in Persona 4 can be pretty dark. Would you say that Persona 4 had a nice balance between its tone?
I definitely do. I like how after you, like, for example, solve a rescue a victim from the TV world. They kind of go into, like, it follows a pattern after a while where you rescue someone, there's some type of school event or outing or friendly get together, and it shows what that character that you just rescued is really like. And while some people eventually may find it to be formulaic, I thought that's actually one of the main things that the game did well was, oh, we just rescued, I don't know, Kanji. All right, so he's just some random guy. Then, now we see him what he's really like when we're just like hanging outside. It's really well done, and I do think that the lightheartedness has a really nice balance between the dark stuff too, because there are some really dark stuff in this game. Overall, yeah, like I agree with you, very well balanced.
And there are some really emotional parts, especially near the part of the game where you decide if you're going to get the bad ending, good ending, or true ending. And lastly, about the story, let's talk about the humor. I think this game is incredibly funny.
This game had me splitting my sides from time to time. There are some really funny laugh out loud parts here.
And to add, the added scenes they added for Persona 4 Golden is also incredibly funny as well. Well, the scenes are meant to be funny and lighthearted, like the beach scene, the motorcycle Kina event with Yosuke, Kanji, and the main character. And overall, all the lighthearted moments in Persona 4 in the original and Golden just work so well. They're fun, incredibly funny when they want to be, and just a pleasure to watch.
It's another strength where, again, even in these bonus scenes, it actually doesn't feel tacked on. They actually feel like, we still get to see what the characters are like. And that also brings me to another point that I don't want to forget before we move on to the gameplay, is the new character Marie. She's actually another resident of the Velvet Room, and it actually seems like for a time she's just like another random girl thrown in there for another social link. She's actually one of the deepest characters in the game, and something that I really appreciated was that if you pursue her arc, not going to spoil anything, there's going to be a very shocking plot twist, I think. And what shocked me was that this plot twist actually felt like it belonged in the story the whole time. I can't honestly imagine a story without her now at this point because of how well they fit it into the game. And her arc I found to be genuinely emotional, and learning her true identity was quite a surprise. I think Marie is definitely one of my favorite characters in the game, and I think Atlus did a great job with her character.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how integrated she felt within the main plot, even though she was added for this version. It was kind of like how the future arc in Graces felt like it was part of the original story all along in Tales of Graces F, which I think is great overall. It didn't feel tacked on, it felt like it was part of the main story all along. Though, one more thing to note. I know this is the story part of the review, but I just want to say that you should probably max her social links as fast as possible.
The reason is for spoiler.
Okay, now we get to the gameplay part of the game. First, we're going to talk about how the game is structured in terms of the time management system that Persona 4 uses, then the combat system, and then finally Persona Fusion. And we'll talk about the additions that Golden brings as we get to them. Structurally, the game uses a time management system where you have to balance between raising the social links, dungeon crawling in the TV world, and doing some activities that can raise your social stats, as well as doing some part-time jobs to raise both your money and social stats. And social stats are basically what I describe as social interactivity stats, which will allow you to choose some dialogue choices that can raise your affinity with characters that have you have a social link with, as well as opening up new social links, as well as opening up part-time jobs, which are pretty good in terms of the pay you can get from them. Heck, some part-time jobs will also open up some social links. And speaking of social links, let me elaborate on that mechanic a bit. Social links is basically a mechanic that will allow you to increase a fuse persona level if they're in a certain arcana by progressing a specific character friendship, basically, or progressing their storyline in the social links itself by basically spending time with them. And if you're able to max the social link, you are able to fuse a particularly powerful persona. Anyway, the main way of how to progress the game is mostly going into the TV world, doing some dungeon crawling, and basically saving the people who were kicked in the TV world by the murderer. And you have to do this within a certain time frame. which is to say you have to save the people from the TV world before foggy days in the human world, which happens after several days of rain. Hint hint, 2 days does count as several days of rain. The days itself for Persona 4 Golden can be split into after school, evening, and occasionally school phases. So basically you can do a maximum of 2 actions each day, with the occasional school phase, which are mostly just events that happen in school that allow you to raise your social stats, as well as occasionally being able to raise your affinity with your school friends. Well, the school friends are in your class, if you're able to answer the school questions.
Those are hard unless you look them up.
But do know that you do got some free action to do while you are in the town, such as buying equipment from the shops, basically buying stuff is basically a free action in the game. So do take that into account. And that's basically the gist of how the time management system works in Persona 4. Albeit not all the days follow this formula, as there are specific days that are dedicated to the main story / important events / the occasional midterm and final that you get at the high school that the main character is attending. But that's the general formula. And adding to that, there are 2 new areas that Persona 4 Golden added to the original. One is basically being able to traverse the shopping district at night, which will allow you to spend time with your friends at night. It won't progress their social links, but it will build up your affinity so you can progress the social links to the next level when you do decide to spend time with them in the after school phase. And the next one is the Okina Station Mall, where you're able to go to buy costumes, be able to go to movie theaters with your friends to increase their affinity, like in Persona 3, or was it in Portable? But anyway. And lastly, being able to get skill cards from the persona you got equipped via going to the cafe there. Overall, I think the time management system is done well. The game gives you sufficient time to basically progress the game via saving people from the TV world, but the other actions you can do, such as doing part-time jobs to raise your money and social stats, and raising your social links is great, as the social link themselves are pretty interesting with each character, but seeing your social links raising your fierce persona level feels great. And overall, most of the actions you take in terms of the time management system just feel rewarding and worth it, which is great in the time management system. So what do you think of the time management system, Sword?
I think it's definitely one of the best uses of time management, because I've usually never been a fan of games with time limits where time moves in real time, whereas in Persona 3 and 4, time only moves forward when you do something. You can walk around at your leisure, do whatever you want, and time will only move forward if you, I don't know, eat lunch or go to the TV world or do a social link. I think that's definitely one of the main strengths of the gameplay, is how well the calendar system works. And you could, I think what's really cool is how when someone is thrown into the TV world, you have a certain amount of time to rescue them, and you can use the weather forecast to make sure the fog's not going to set in, and you can strategize, oh, I'm going to do social links this day, and then, oh, the rainy day's coming up, so I'm going to go grind a little bit, and then I'm going to try to beat the boss before the time limit's up. So there's a lot of strategy. It's actually fairly challenging to figure out what you're going to do on what days, and when you rescue the victim and you look back on your time with what you did with that whole, dungeon scenario, you feel pretty rewarded. It feels very gratifying to be able to say, oh, I did all this within this time frame and I was able to accomplish my goal.
Now we're going to talk about the combat system. Combat-wise, Persona 4 Golden uses a turn-based combat system called the Press Turn system, a system that's pretty much as stable in the Shin Megami Tensei series, where you're able to control a party with distinctive characters, where you're able to attack, use their persona skills, defend, use items, being able to tinker in the tactics option, which will allow you to either directly control your party member, which is strongly recommended, or allow the AI to take control of them. And lastly, use the analysis option that will keep track of the enemy's strengths and weaknesses as you exploit them. You himself is also able to switch and control a vast amount of personas, with each persona having a definite strength and weakness, and maximizing this ability as well as figuring out the strength and weaknesses of your allies will be key into mastering the one more mechanic, and thus the game. The one more mechanic is basically Persona's 4 most prominent feature, and it's a mechanic that basically allows a character to attack one more time if they are able to hit the opposing enemy weakness, or if you're somehow able to land a critical, which will get the opponent to a down state. And if you attack them again with their elemental weakness or attribute weakness, basically, they'll be in a dizzy state where they won't be able to move for one whole turn. Well, most of the time will happen. But do be wary that the enemy can do the same thing to you, in that if they exploit your party member or your elemental weaknesses, they'll put you in a down state and they'll be able to move again. So be especially wary of the enemy types that you'll be facing in the game. Well, you'll mostly be doing that by switching personas with you. But you're wondering, how about other party members who can't change their personas? Well, that's where the defend option comes in. Defending will not only allow you to, well, block and attack and lower the damage, but it'll also allow you to withstand elemental attack that the party member is weak to. Next thing I'm going to talk about in the One More system is all-out attacks, which is basically a specific attack that will activate if all the enemies on the field is either in a down state or a dizzy state, via for exploiting elemental weaknesses or criticaling them, which will basically get all your allies on the field to basically jump the enemy. Though do know that if you eliminate an enemy without downing them, you won't get all attack even if the other enemies are in a down state. Another thing to consider is that any enemy that's in a dizzy state will recover if you aren't able to kill them outright, as well as considering that sometimes doing all attack won't do much damage to a certain type of enemies. One more mechanic that's integrated into the One More system is character specific special actions, which will allow your allies to basically perform a critical attack, or in Chie case, just kill the enemy outright.
Keep her in the party at all times so that happens. It's awesome. They die Team Rocket style.
Yep. But do know that if you do use the character special actions, you'll basically use up the turn that you got from exploiting an elemental weakness or doing a critical. Also do note that character specific special actions will activate if all an enemy is down. What will happen is basically you will get a prompt for an all-out attack. As for the additions that Golden adds to the combat system in Persona 4, the first that comes to mind is S-Click abilities, which is a mechanic where your party members are able to learn additional abilities as you raise their social links, which I don't think was in the original Persona 4. I know in the original game, when you advance each character's social link with the character that's in your party, they were able to do certain actions to help the MC.
Yeah, they could push you out of the way and recover ailments, but in Persona 4 Golden, they also allow you to learn, oh, here's a magic spell that you couldn't learn in the original game for getting the social link to a certain level.
There are also other additions in combat, such as dual all-out attacks, which happens after an initial all-out attack, and it happens when certain characters are together, like Chie or Yukiko, and it really only happens, I feel, when enemies near death. And the last mechanic we're probably going to discuss is the shuffle mechanic. You want to explain this, Sword?
Shuffle is in the original Persona 4, where basically, like, you would have a group of Persona cards, you would have a penalty card, and you would have like a blank one, and how it worked in that game is they would kind of shuffle around about, and then you would have to press X at the right time to get whatever you want. So it's more of a timing game, whereas in Golden, it's actually a lot more interesting, because it sort of plays like you're playing blackjack or some type of casino card game, where they brought back the experience and health buffs from Persona 3 that weren't in the original Persona 4, and then there are different types, like, oh, you have to mix and match what cards you want to do, and then, oh, if you pick this Arcana card, it'll grant you 2 more times to grab as many cards as you can, and if you can grab every single card within that one swoop, you'll get a sweep bonus, and then you can grab more cards after the next battle, which I think it makes each shuffle actually very interesting, and I actually had a lot of fun doing the shuffles. I mean, because in Persona 3 and 4 it was kind of just like a whatever routine, but in 4, in Golden, I was like, oh my god, I'm actually having a lot of fun doing these shuffles.
The combat system overall I find really fun. There's a lot of strategic options to be had in the One More mechanic, especially with you having to be really careful with what type of allies you bring to the dungeon, what type of personas you should bring, as he is able to carry multiple personas, and just being wary of the elemental strength and the mental weaknesses is really the main fun of Persona 4 Golden. Like how you can exploit an extra turn from exploit enemy weakness, and the all-out attack is especially satisfying to use. After you basically exploit every enemy weakness, and seeing your allies basically jump on enemy after you do so is great to see. And you also have to consider the defensive side of combat as well, not only in terms of preparation, in terms of what type of personas you should bring, or what type of allies you should bring, as I said before, but also in-game tactics in terms of which allies should defend against which type of foe because of elemental weaknesses. And the combat system is pretty fast as well.
Yeah, battles don't take like 2 minutes with long drawn-out animations. I mean, even the most highest tier of spells will only take at least like max 3 or 4 seconds to do. And I think something I liked about 4's combat was that its beauty is in its simplicity, and it's not just some generic, oh, I hit you, you hit me. It's got more to it. I mean, Peter even explained it. And yeah, elemental weaknesses actually play a really prominent role as opposed to most other RPGs where, oh, hitting an enemy that's weak to fire will just do some more damage. There's a lot more to it, a lot more complexity. So it's a in its own way complex but not convoluted combat system, and it was, yeah, I agree, a lot of fun to do. Something that I like though, is kind of going back to Persona strengths to weaknesses, was that you can, like we established already, can switch personas, whereas everyone else only has one persona. And I personally like this because it makes every character feel unique, and whereas the main character, you know, he's supposed to feel like you, the player, and then that he's unique, and everyone else, oh, I don't want to bring Yosuke in here because the enemies use electricity, he's right to electricity, so let's bring in whoever else. So there's not even just strategy in the combat, but also who you're going to bring in your party as well in the dungeons. So there's more strategy there to be had too.
Though I do find it annoying how you can really only bring 4 characters into the dungeon, and the other characters that get left behind don't get any experience whatsoever.
Something else I didn't like though was, and this seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of the Shin Megami Tensei games, was that it's game over if the main character dies. And in this game in particular, I find odd because you can control all your party members, and it would be so easy if the main character died, just throw a friggin' revival gem at him and then he'd come back. As someone who's been used to SMT for a long time, I'm used to that, but still, it was kind of lame.
Leveling system wise, Persona 4, well, Persona 4 and 3 basically use a standard leveling system where you get enough experience, you level up. Though it's kind of different for you himself, as his persona level determines how strong of a persona he can make via persona fusion, which is the next mechanic we're going to talk about. Persona fusion is a mechanic that allows you to fuse multiple personas to create a stronger persona. And there are basically 2 fusions in the game. Normal fusion, which basically allow you to basically fuse any 2 or 3 personas together to create a stronger persona. And high tier fusion, which is the cross fusion, hexagon fusion, etc., which requires specific personas to create very high tiered personas. Do note that your fused persona will sometimes inherit some skills from the personas that was used to fuse it in the first place. Though the skills that the fused persona could get was sort of random in the original, while in Persona 4 Golden you're able to choose which skills you want to inherit. And I also briefly talked about skill cards. Skill cards are basically items you can get from Persona that allow any persona to learn a specific skill. What that skill is dependent on the persona, and you can basically get that skill card by going to Akina City and using that cafe where you get the card itself, and then you can give it to Marie where she'll be able to sell you duplicates of the skill card. Overall, the Persona fusion is done really well. There's tons of customization to be had in the different amount of personas you can fuse, and it just really feels satisfying to just create all these powerful personas via fusion. There's just this great feeling of progression when you do fuse a really powerful persona and you just want to go into battle and just test this new persona out. Really satisfying. And the additions that Golden adds in terms of being able to control which inherited skills you want, as well as the skill card, just really adds a lot to the Persona Fusion and make the process less of a hassle as compared to the original.
I think the fusion adds a lot of depth because there's a lot of freedom to be had here. The personas in my compendium will probably be very different from the personas that you have in your compendium, unless you're using a guide and trying to get every single persona. And there's so many options. There's like such a non-linear customization, and developing and leveling up the personas individually is so gratifying. And especially once you get doing the higher tier fusions like the pentagon, the hexagon fusions, once you get like friggin' Lucifer as your persona, you feel so satisfied, and you're just like using the Armageddon spell over and over again. It's just so awesome.
Overall, Persona 4 Golden is a fantastic game. The visuals are nice, the sound design is fantastic, and the story is just very unique and engaging, as well as being emotionally charging. And the gameplay overall is just fantastically designed, from the time management system to the combat system that Persona 4 Golden uses to the Persona Fusion. And the additions that Persona 4 Golden adds to the original also alleviates some of my issues I had with the original, even though I did love the original very much. And overall, I would say Persona 4 Golden is worth a purchase for your Vita, both for newcomers and also fans who played the original and loved it.
I bought a Vita just for that game, and I should say it enough already.
And that's all basically from both me and Sword, folks. See you next time. And Sword, thank you for being here.
No problem, man. Pleasure to be on.